Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Greenhouse Center. I can already tell you we were singing and dancing here on this amazing song of Heather Small. And actually I'm going to be joined here by Heather Small and Dave Nita, but I will do proper introduction in a few minutes time. You know, I would have loved to have a face-to-face event here, followed by drinks, nibbles, network opportunities, but it is what it is. But I'm still unbelievably impressed by the turnout to this event, so thank you for that. And to think that everyone who is joining this event actually wants to work towards a better future, where your chance of a successful career and life will not be determined by your ethnicity, your religion, disability or sexual orientation is really truly inspiring. So we have a lot to cover during this 1 hour, and in this session obviously you will learn about the experiences of Heather Small and Dave Nita, and we will explore together what actually is really meant by diversity and inclusion. We'll then talk a little bit about the importance of movements such as Black Lives Matters. Then, how can we bring about real and sustainable changes? And then lastly, we'll cover the role of a proper partnership between corporates and charities. So, now we want this discussion to be really engaging, and that's difficult, with a virtual event. So we'll give an opportunity for Q&A towards the end, but also during the session, there will be a few polling questions, and they will appear on your screen, and really I urge you to participate. It should be really fun. So, first of all, I'm going to give you a quick overview of Greenhouse Sports, who we are, what we do, and so forth. So we have a few slides here, and I think we'll flick the first slide, which is really our vision and mission. And whenever I look at the vision, every child has a fair chance to succeed, I'm always really impressed. And in fact, I'm going to tell you something. This is what made me, when I read that sentence, this is what made me apply for the role of CEO of Greenhouse Sports. I think it's a very powerful sentence. And at Greenhouse Sports, we actually use the power of sports and mentoring as a vehicle to develop life skills with those young people we work with. So, what do we do? Where are we? Well, actually, we operate in London, really. We are a charity operating in London. And we work with about 7,500 kids or young people in the whole of London. But we really have two programs. One are the schools, and we have about 50 schools across the 17 London boroughs, and you see them there on the map. And we provide full-time coaches, and they focus really on extracurricular activities. And we do basketball, table tennis, netball, and so forth. And we're still looking to add more sports. And then we have the center, where I'm here now, a beautiful center, the Consecrated Church, where we also have a lot of sports activity for kids, after school. And in the morning, we move towards using it more as a community center for the people, who live here. Few stats: 38% of our participants are female, and we work very hard to bring that number up. 77% are from a BAME background, and an important stat is that 69% are, young people who live in areas of high deprivation. So that's a little bit stats about the demographics. But more important, what is the impact of our interventions? And there is always one number, a couple of numbers that I focus on. One is people or young people who work who are part of our programs tend to spend 8 days more in schools than their peers, which is amazing, because you want the kids in school, you want them to learn and to enjoy their education. Now we have one more slide, and this is about inequality in London. And I think that slide for me is a direct correlation with diversity and inclusion. That slide for me tells us why we in Greenhouse Sports, we need to have a debate around diversity and inclusion. Look at it, we have 37% of children in London who are living in poverty. And what is more striking is that 79% of these are in working families, so this is working poverty. The absolute number of kids is 800,000. And this is in a G7 country. It is shocking when you look at those numbers. These kids wake up in the morning and often think, how is my mother or father going to pay for breakfast today? We should not have that. Wealth is distributed is unequally distributed in London as well. The top 10 percent of the most wealthiest people in London own almost 43% of the wealth, and the worst 10%, the lowest 10%, the lowest decile, only owns around 0.1% of the total wealth. So, then there is something else, a bullet on this slide, which I think speaks a lot to my heart and has definitely influenced the way we are thinking of developing our interventions over the next few years, is the ACE study. And ACE stands for, is the correlation between adverse childhood experience and premature death. And this is what I'm so keen to start working with much younger children as well. So this was really it for the slides around greenhouse sports. Now we have a little clip. I always think it's the best, to show a little video. And the video that we will be sharing with you is about a little boy called, a young boy, a teenager called Richard. And, Richard has faced quite a lot of prejudgment in his life so far. So I thought I would share that. You will see also his interaction with the coach Alex, and I think we'll see his mother as well. So I will be back after this little clip.
Sometimes I find school really challenging because when I go into a lesson with a teacher I haven't met yet, they've already heard about my previous behavioural issues, which causes me to get judged by different teachers sometimes, so it makes it very difficult for me to have a normal learning environment. My first memories of basketball are in primary school around the end of year 5. I didn't want to play football with the other kids, so one of my learning staff brought me over to the corner where there was a low basketball rim and started teaching me how to play. At first I didn't like it, but after I started getting better, I started to really enjoy it.
I first met Richard when I first arrived at Harrison Victor's. He loved basketball and he was really good at listening. Our introductory was on a team base and I was very disciplined with him.
My first impression of her was that she was really strict and firm. But as I got to know her, she was more firm than strict and just wanted me to do my best.
I saw someone passionate, I was passionate about that, so we got on well. And when I did have to reprimand him in the classroom as well as off the classroom, he took it well because it was just to make him a better person.
She's really helpful in my school because she helps me out on and off the court. And when I'm annoyed, I know I can go to her for advice.
Greenhouse has literally been a lifeline to us because it has kept Richard in school. It's given Richard somebody that understands his needs and is on his side.
They've provided me another way to output my energy by playing basketball, which helps me focus more on lessons when I come off the court.
He's been not supported with too much in his life, so when I watch my son play basketball, it melts my heart that he has found acceptance somewhere and that he is achieving so wonderfully.
Now, let me introduce our two guests for today, and I have the honor to have here in Greenhouse Center, Heather Small and Dave Nita. So let me start with Heather Small. Heather Small, famous pop music icon and lead singer of the M People, a band in the 90s. She's also an inspirational speaker and driven by her desire to give back to disadvantaged communities and to make a real difference. Heather has established herself as a force to be reckoned with in the diversion and inclusion circles. She firmly believes that the key to opportunity is education for all, and which is why she has chosen really to support Greenhouse Sports. Welcome, Heather.
Okay.
David Nita. David Nita is a lawyer, a published poet, lecturer, international speaker, specializing in cultural leadership, and a commentator on race, politics, mental health, and the arts. He's also an advocate for the human rights and an expert in organizational development and mental health. Dave has worked with lots of corporations as well, the Zurich Corporation, Harvard Financial Services, and NASA. He works as an advocate for the underprivileged, the exploited, and disenfranchised people everywhere. Dave, welcome.
Good to be here.
Right, so let's start this interview. You know, a lot of people are waiting for this, and I know it's going to be really, really interesting. So we'll start first by, I'm going to ask you about your experience. So, Heather, if I may, I'll start with you. Mm-hmm. How was it for you to grow up in Britain?
I'd have to say that it was quite difficult for me growing up in Britain. I grew up in the 70s, and the racism was overt. And so I realized quite early on that all that I wasn't accepted in society. And that was difficult because I heard no so many times. As I said before, it followed me around like a bad odor. I heard no at school. I heard no at church, which was run by a very white Anglican vicar. And it made me feel disenfranchised. It made me feel that I did not belong. And I tried my best to understand why. And it basically came down to the fact that I was black. And I felt disenfranchised because being black, I was from immigrant stock, I lived in a council estate, I was female, and all these things in society are seen as a negative. So as a package together, I felt quite invisible. It was unsettling for a while, but the one saving grace was that I had a mother who was very strong and very determined, and she taught me to make those so-called disadvantages into an advantage.
And as a child, did you really see that as racism, or did you experience that racism?
I experienced it quite a bit. Day-to-day racism, but the worst, I think, was at school, because I was at primary school. I heard my headmaster speak racial stereotypes about giving black children all the prizes on sports day because all the black children would win. He was in his office at school, and it made me think, wow, I'm hated even here, and here I am, all of like 8, 9 years of age, and I'm not just fighting the boy in the playground that throws racist stereotypes at us every single day, but also my teachers. And then I got to secondary school. I was quite bright. I was in the top stream, and by the time I got to third year, because of the just relentless racism, I was in a place where I just felt defeated. And it was really very, very sad. And my grades started to slip, and my will to learn started to slip. And I think that education is the best way to move forward social mobility. So if we're letting our children down, whatever they look like, but especially if they don't look like the indigenous majority, that we're in a very sad place. And can I say that it's changed? This is why I'm here today, because I can't say that it has changed, not significantly.
So you think there's still a long road ahead?
There's a long road ahead, but there's hope.
Dave, I'll bring you in. So what's your experience? I know that you grew up in Jamaica.
Yes,
and you
indeed.
felt quite supported there, but tell me a bit about it, and then how, what you felt when you came to the UK.
Yeah, well, I was educated in Jamaica. I did my secondary school years all in Jamaica. Primary school, secondary school years, all in Jamaica. And it's quite a different experience, because there we didn't have what we experience here in terms of institutional racism in the school or structural racism in the school. I feel it was a positive experience. I had a very positive experience at school. I felt that my teachers and my elders wanted the best for me and all the students in the school. There was no real differentiation in terms of race. I mean, there may have been some issues around colorism, but that's another matter. But in terms of race, we didn't have racism in that sense. Coming here, I witnessed that in the school. I witnessed, because I worked in the school system here, and I have worked and continue to work in the school systems here as one of the jobs that I do, and I can testify to what Heather is saying in terms of that experience. The real shame of it is that Heather experienced it in her time, in her era. We are contemporaries, and now young people are still experiencing this, you know, sometimes up to 17 times they say as likely to be excluded from school as a white child for the same thing. And we get reports after reports of institutional racism, not just in education, but in health, in the criminal justice system. And so it's systematic. You know, it really is systematic, and it's dangerous, it's deleterious for our society when a section of the community, of the children, feel like they're not supported, they're not wanted. And I think we must eradicate it. We cannot have this continuing, because it really is damaging to the individual and to the whole of society.
And the fact is damaging, I mean, as you were saying, Heather, if you experience it at young age, let's say 12, 13, you get discouraged, you give up a little bit.
You know, there is that tendency to give up. If you see that, like we said before, it's institutionalized, that the teachers, that the police, you know, anybody in authority looks at you and first thinks criminal, first thinks something very, very negative, first thinks of a stereotype. It is damaging. And, you know, this is why I am an advocate for Greenhouse, because, you know, it takes those negatives and it puts something positive into those children's lives every single day. Because you say, you know, you have the coaches in the school, and there's always somebody reinforcing that positive, that potential. And because no one has a monopoly on intelligence, determination, on potential. And with Greenhouse, every single day that's reiterated that you have potential, that you can achieve excellence. And that excellence is also shown, you know, so it's like you're here and you could be at this point, but Greenhouse shows you how to get to that point, because there's no use having a mark of excellence and no way for those children to understand how to get there. And like I said, Greenhouse shows those children how to get there. There's a safety net. And you need that sunshine on you as a child. You need that beam. You need somebody there saying you can achieve. And when it doesn't quite work, they dust you off and put you back on the road, and you start again.
So I'd like to explore a thought with you. I mean, so those people who succeed, and you know, we all succeeded, you know, in our kind of way. But do you believe also that, you know, for those people, what I think, you know, has been my experience in my life is, I've given it some thought, because I can't say that, you know, it has been difficult for me, but I think that you try to fit in as well. You know, I was never really aware that I was different, but I was trying to fit in. You want to be part of the club, you want to be, you know, you don't want to be associated, maybe, as I said to you earlier, I never was part of a minority networking group, and I feel actually now a bit ashamed about this, but I think unconsciously this was not the right group to be with. You know, I wanted to succeed, I wanted to go on with my career. Has that been your experience as well? What would you say about this?
I can relate to your experience, because like I say, if you join certain groups that are an offshoot of your main office, it feels like I said before, social suicide. But I came from a very proud Caribbean background, and so at school we made our presence felt, that we were different and we were proud to be different. You remember it's 70s, afros and flares and things like that, and you know, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And so we endorsed each other, but that wasn't but we didn't have that endorsement from the wider society. And like I say, the difference now is that the wider society is taking note.
What would you say about fitting in?
Well, it's interesting hearing you say you'd want to fit in, you know, and you had this pressure. You feel like you wanted to fit in, Beatrice, because you think about it, your demographic, our demographics represent the world's global majority. We are the majority. And here we are in societies where we're trying to fit into a mold that is not us. We're made to feel that the authentic us isn't acceptable, isn't good enough. And that is poisonous. That is poisonous for a society. Just imagine, just breathe an intake of fresh air and imagine what it feels like to not have to be performative, to be like somebody else, to fit into anywhere, because you're, as the writer from America, Zora Neale Hurston says, such as I am, I'm a precious gift. Imagine if we all walked around with that sense, such as I am, I'm a precious gift. Imagine the sense of liberation we would feel. But sadly, Beatrice, many of our people in our community feel just like you feel, like you need to fit in, like I'm not good enough just as I am. And we need to change that dynamic in our societies and in our structures. We need to create safe spaces and celebratory spaces where people feel empowered to feel themselves and that they're making a contribution just as themselves, changing nothing.
The thing is, like I said, we came from a very proud background, Caribbean, and we were proud of ourselves, but it was stamped out. They tried to stamp it out. And you talk about safe spaces. Everywhere should be a safe space. I should be able to be myself, wear my natural hair and not be judged. We're the only women on the planet that nobody wants to see our hair. And if we do, we're not likely to get employed. But if I make my hair more, like I said, the majority straight, then the chances are that I'd be more acceptable. So I think to myself, when you say about fitting in, it's trying to make yourself more acceptable, more approachable in a Western standard. But I don't look Western. I'm born and bred here, and for a long time I was made to feel like I didn't belong here, and I've reclaimed that, and that's how I fitted in. Not by changing myself, but claiming it myself, and accepting myself as I am, so that others will accept me as I am, and saying, yes, I am good enough.
So school was quite, you had difficult experiences there. Have you ever thought of going back to the school and tell them, now that you're a superstar,
I don't know about superstar,
everybody knows you, your songs.
A good few years back, Beatrice, to be honest with you, they did ask me to come back to the school, and I couldn't go because I thought that I'd get up there and I'd have to be truthful, and I'd have to say I succeeded in spite of school. Because if they'd asked who would be successful and who would go on to do anything of note or merit, I would not have been the person that they chose, not at all. My colour alone negated that, and that's very, very sad. If I internalised some of what happened in society when I was younger, I'd be in such trouble. And I want the children, I don't want children to walk around till they're 30 before they accept who they are and what their potential is in this society. I want them to accept themselves and be accepted in society from the way they look, from their sexuality, anything. Just say, I belong. And you have to make those spaces. Sometimes those spaces are definitely not safe. They're not safe at all. But you have to neutralize those spaces sometimes.
I think that's a very important point that Heather makes, because she underscored the point, and it mustn't be missed, that she's who she is today, in spite of the school. And there's a lot of black people and people from the majority communities of the world in this society who would say the same thing. Imagine that statement, that I'm here and I've made it to where I've made it in spite of school. Now, I dare say that will be the minority in terms of the intake of those students. Imagine the people who did not make it because of the oppressive nature of the school. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that people won't remember a teacher or a kind act in school or a kind student and so on, but generally speaking, on our level, people of our age group will talk about school as a hostile environment where they weren't encouraged, they were excluded, they were set aside, they had racism, they were facing it every day. And this is part of the problem. We got to change those systems and make them welcoming and make them tap into the potential of all the students. And guess who have potential in the school? All the students.
Well, anyway, now you've been able to say it on camera.
In fact, I said it wrong.
You've been able to say it on camera. You succeeded. Heather Small succeeded in spite of the school.
Yes.
But so the school where she has been to is, if they are listening, now you know.
But I did have, like Dave says, there are those teachers.
Absolutely.
Like my English teacher, my French teacher. And I excelled. And that was the thing. The teachers that...
Did you say French?
French, yeah. The teachers that put a spotlight on me, I excelled at. There was a direct correlation. There was a direct correlation. And the teachers that put me to one side or didn't really bother with me, I didn't bother with them. But Dave has a great saying. He used to say to my son, learn to love your teacher, whatever they're like. Learn to love your teacher, because if you love your teacher, you will love the subject. But sometimes those teachers aren't lovable. Not all,
Yes.
not all, and it has changed since I was growing up, you know. And there is, like I keep saying, there is some hope.
I mean, we could talk about this a lot, but it's a very important point. We have to educate our students how to do well in school. Like respecting your teacher, loving your subject, and so on. It's the school that should be doing those things.
Absolutely. I'm going to take us to the second
Anyway, yes.
chapter of our questions, because I could be listening to you for hours. But, you know, I'm sitting here, part of the audience, assume. So, you know, I listen to all these stories and I ask myself, how can we bring about real and sustainable changes? So, yes, how can we do that? Dave, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, it's got to start with, I think, really and truly, we have to come to terms with the fact that we need to employ a philosophy and a whole ethos of love. I'm going to invite everybody now, at some point, to visit the British Museum. And there, well, actually, as a high-ranking official of the British Museum told me, a white man said to me that this should, and my students, this should be called anything but the British Museum because there's nothing British here. Anyway, in the museum, you'll find a statue that's dating thousands of years old of a little child who is held by an adult, and it's carved out of one stone. And when you look at it and you see, when you look at the statue, you think to yourself, and it's from Egypt, it's from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and you look at it and you think to yourself, goodness, this is the mother and child. Until you read it and you realize it is not mother and child. It is the child of the greatest woman on the planet at the time, greatest person on the planet at the time, which was the Pharaoh queen, Hatshepsut.
Yeah.
That was her daughter, Nefertari. And holding her in the most loving, cosseting embrace was Neferuru, who was looking after her. That's a model that we all need to keep in mind, that the raising of our children in our society cannot be done by parenting alone, by governments alone, by private sector alone, by even schools alone. It's going to take the charitable sector that has that expertise and that heart, like Neferuru, to guide that child. And you saw it in your film. Sarah, the mother of Richard, couldn't do it alone. It took Alex, the coach, who came along, and you know, you could see Richard looking up to her, and she's teaching him and she's coaching him. And I dare say Richard will probably emerge a better basketball player than Alex, the coach. But her job is not to be a basketball player. Her job is to pour her expertise into Richard to make him up. And that's the power of charities. And that's why we need to support our charities. And that's where it starts.
But what about also for people to seek to try to understand more about the different cultures?
Well, absolutely. I just mentioned the British Museum and about all these cultures.
You did say that.
Much of it, all of it, some of it is given. Some of it was bartered. Much of it is stolen. But it's there. It is here. It represents the world. You know, the world is in the city of London. There's no more diverse city than the city of London. And Londoners need to do more to engage their city, to go out and interact. Everybody from every nation. There are hundreds of languages spoken here, and everybody from every nation is here. And yet, we still only talk to the people we went to school with and rode horses with and in the same club with and promote them in our organizations and structures.
That's right.
And we don't look wide afield to look at the full talent pool of our amazing, fascinating city and engage different communities in order to enrich our lives. We keep it stale and pale and absolutely unfit for purpose. And we need to radically change this by engaging.
That's the thing is for me, for sustainability, to see real change. One, we need allies, and we said the movement Black Lives Matter, and people saying, you know, what's so different now? And I think it's because people are listening and outside of the black community, and we do need people to ally, and so the bigger the voice, the louder the noise, and you can't ignore that kind of force. And to make sure that there's some kind of diversity, that there is some kind of, it has to be dismantled. What is wrong has to be dismantled and start again and put right. Because I am in this room, I'm speaking to you, Dave and I are two invited guests, but there's nobody who looks like Dave and I behind any of these cameras on these computers. And so we have to look first and foremost at at our small circle sometimes to make that difference. There has to be some cameramen.
But I look a bit like you, do?
No, but I'm saying that we're in the invited, we're the invited guests. Yeah. Yes, of course, you're of African and descent.
Absolutely.
But like I say, the people are taking all of this down, and nobody looks like us.
But they are champion of our cause.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, to make
Totally
change,
agree.
you have to look at yourself. You have to look at your corporation. You have to engage in making some changes. And those changes, especially for people who are in power, not easy at all, but you have to admit that something is not right. If I am likely to die, 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than my white counterpart,
And something is wrong.
something is wrong, And I know that my white counterpart doesn't want me to die. So, it's like, so we have to band together. It's not only about color, it's not only about race. We are basically all human beings, and we must respect each other, and we should find out if everybody in your group looks exactly like you, speaks exactly like you, feels exactly like you, you've got to make some changes to your group.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter again. I mean, I know you touched about it, but obviously, this was a big movement a few months ago. Is it already slipping back? And when we did a rehearsal a few weeks ago, Dave, we talked about we have this window opportunity, but we need to make sure that the window doesn't close. So what's your view on that one? Because I feel that already it's slipping back a little bit.
The status quo is to ignore all these injustices in society, and we've seen that. We've seen it. We have our own George Floyd moment here with Christopher Alder. We have our own Breonna Taylor here with Joy Gardner. All these stories, we are parallel all across the world. We have this, right? But this moment was special this time round. For some reason, a man crying out for his mama. A man crying out and say, I can't breathe, in a time of a pandemic that would seek to take away your breath. Somehow the planet identified, we all became George Floyd's mama. Now those moments are emotional, but I'm sad to say they don't last. We all remember Rodney King, we all remember all these moments that made us, the reports that are being written all the time that tell us about, as Heather was talking about, the unequal distribution of health and life outcomes and so on. So racism is like a door hinged with a spring that keeps shutting. Its natural thing is to shut. And I think we need to hinge it open and even take off the door so that the sunlight can come in. The sunlight of social equality can come in. That's a true disinfectant, is the sunlight, the best there is. Keep it open and let us look at ourselves, because let us not retreat back into the shadows and the dark where we don't have to look at ourselves. People think we need to look at other communities and engage with other communities. Well, people travel. We're the biggest travelers in the world. It's ourselves that we haven't visited and examined. We need to look into the mirror and strip away what we see there. Look deep and see how inhumane we have become. Because I'm telling you, the condition of the world is not because of the world, it's because of us. It's because of the leaders of the world, the leaders of all the captains of industry. Right? And so once you look at that, then we need to set about bringing about real structural change. And you do that with everybody.
Yeah.
Not just top down, but it has to be bottom up and right the way through with total engagement. They have a phrase they talk about, what they call it, EDI. And so we need to go beyond that. It's equality, diversity, and inclusion. We need to go to participation as well. I don't want to just be included. I'm included in so many things. I want to participate too.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good word, participation.
And we must make sure that all the people in our systems get a chance to participate.
And having said
value.
that, our young people, I have to say, I did go on one of those Black Lives Matter marches, and I felt a shift and a change, and that was because of the people, the diversity of the voices there. Our young people were magnificent. I saw a traditionally dressed young Jewish boy. I saw a young father with his daughter on top of his shoulders. And as people came in, and all types of people came into the park, they were all being clapped in by the people that were already there. There was a sense of camaraderie, there was a sense of togetherness. And so for me, I think that if we can keep that sense of togetherness, if we can keep that sense of that there is injustice and that it must be righted, that there is a chance for change.
Great. Dave, I can definitely see the poet in you. But I'll do one more question before we start the next chapter. You know, I just want to ask a question to Heather. I mean, you co-wrote the song Proud. You know, and were you thinking about, you know, when you wrote the lyrics, about diversity and inclusion? And I'll mention the paragraph. It's, you say, I'm not going to sing it. Yeah, we need a change, yeah, do it today. I can feel my spirit rising, change, yeah, we need a change, yeah, so do it today. So what were you thinking when you were writing?
I was thinking that, you know, sometimes it's the little things that make the difference. And the things that we're most proud of, sometimes people haven't seen. You know, they're done in the dark, like charitable work and just an achievement of your child. You know, nobody's going to be happier than me that my son achieves. It makes no difference to anybody else. It makes all the difference in the world to me. I wanted to say that all that I am, I should be proud of. And the things that people, and they're not naturally the things that people would think I should be proud of. People always think it's automatically, your mum must be proud of you, you know, you're a singer. And I think she's proud of me because of the person that I've turned out to be.
Totally.
I'm really quite hardworking.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. So, and I like to have fun. So I thought, celebrate self. Doesn't matter how different self is. And I've sung that song in churches, in gay clubs, and for me it's a coming together and basically saying that we are the same and we need the same things. You know, there's no shame in that, and celebrate that.
Well, it's a powerful message, it's a beautiful message, and that's why the song is still so popular, right? Right, so before we go to the last part of our conversation, I just want to remind you that we have the opportunity here to have Q&A, so you can post questions in the chat box, and what you need to do is, I think, scroll down, and then you will see you know, some space to write some questions. So, you know, let's go, you know, I have one more area I would like to explore with you, and that's about the partnerships between corporates and charities. You know, how can they work together to, you know, tackle some of those biggest problems in society, and, you know, diversity and inclusion is one of them. So Heather, I'll go back to you first and ask you, you know, if Greenhouse Pulse would have been around at that time, do you think we would have made a difference for you and your classmates when you were growing up and going to that school in, can I say it's in Hammersmith?
Shepherd's Bush.
Shepherd Bush. All right, so the school was in Shepherd Bush.
You know, that's a good question, and I would have to definitely say yes, because Greenhouse does show children, with its coaches, with its ethos, that there is excellence out there and that you have potential and that you can meet that potential. It's all about saying yes. And I was in an environment where there was a lot of no. And I think that Greenhouse shows where you start and where you should end up. And you start here and you try and attain excellence. But Greenhouse also shows you that the steps towards that excellence, and that makes all the difference. And if you waver, if you falter, there's a safety net, and that's what I think children need. You need a safety net. You need somebody who's watching, who's guarding, who's making sure that you're okay, and rights you when you're in that position and puts you back on that path. You need constant care. You need constant love, and you need watching all of the time. You just need care and love, like Dave said before. And I think to myself, you know, people can say it's cheesy, but when you build a house for yourself, you build it with love. And sometimes people build houses for other people, not with the same kind of care and love. So anything that you build, you have to build with care and love. And you always have to assume that you will end up living there. Because what visits our neighbour today will visit us tomorrow. And if we don't have that care and that love and that construction of and foundation, our children will suffer.
So Dave, I'll bring you in here. Okay, we understand the role of the charities. You expanded, you mentioned something about that earlier on. But how can corporates work better with charities, towards this problem?
Well, I'll put it like this. I mentioned before that no one entity or institution or person can claim credit for the outcome of a successful child in our society. It takes a combination, right? Now, I'll just give you an example, and I hope Heather doesn't mind. Heather, what I've learned some of the best lessons I've learned about parenting, I've learned from Heather and her parenting style with her child. I mean, it's just fascinating to observe, because, at this stage in my life, I'm really curious about parenting. I don't have a child myself, so I'm curious about parenting because I know that I have to de facto parent. Not parent biologically, but de facto parent. I know that my work involves working with a lot of youngsters, and so these tips are important. So I'm observing this, and I think it's fascinating. And I'm observing something, and there's love, there's care, there's warmth, there's acceptance, they're making you feel really special. And there's something about understanding the will and desire and joys of a child's heart and coming up and supporting that. So Heather's child is now a product, not just of her own parenting, but what she brought into the child's life. I saw this. Let's say he likes a sport. She engages the best in the community of those sports to give him that chance to excel at it because he enjoys it, he loves it. He needs engagement in other areas, learning chess, learning this, and she brings in the best support around him. It's not her that's doing it, she's bringing it in. A lot of the elements that Heather brought in to support the raising of her child are the charitable sector, are those sector, people who give up their time. Now, how do charities get to the one thing charities have, they have vision and heart. Charities exist because they see something in society, it's lacking, they know how to fix it, and often they need resources to fix it because other people can't fix it. The people sitting around the desk charging £1,000 an hour, they wouldn't have a clue how to fix it. They have a clue how to do other things, make money and so on. So what better way to build a better society than to enable others who are doing it and doing it well to help us all with the collective raising of our children, which is what the African proverb talk about when they say it takes a village to raise a child. And I would say to all the corporates, be a part of that village. Be a tangible part of that village. You may not be doing the work, but you're funding others who can do that work very well to create a better society.
And also be engaging with that funding as well. It's not just about giving the money. It's,
Although that's important, we agree.
Of course that is important. But I would like for in 10 years' time for somebody from Greenhouse to be in the upper echelons of one of these corporates participating, engaging the children, know the children as well. Don't just give money and no heart.
Employability.
Exactly, because if you come to the centre, you'll see some amazing children, and you can't tell me that you're not going to see a potential CEO here. So that's what I would like as well. I'd like them to engage.
I would love that as well. I absolutely would love that as well. Yeah. So that's for me a nice segue into summarizing a little bit what Greenhouse Sports does with your corporates, because we do work with quite a lot of corporates and of all sizes. I mean, the partnerships are all sizes. So perhaps if you can flick and share a couple of slides with the audience. So we'll talk about the funding background, but as I said, the partnerships are all sizes, and you can see that even an amount such as 10K can actually do quite a lot for Greenhouse Sports. We can fund after-school clubs in our school programs. all the school programs that we have running in East London, and well, that would do, that would go towards it. We can pay for coaches, a corporate can pay for coaches. A corporate can also adopt a school. I love the idea of a corporate being adopt a school and see how those kids are progressing throughout the years. And thinking about it, in a school typically we would be working with 200 kids. So, and then there are bigger support, bigger amounts, and we have corporates that actually gave much more than this, and I have to thank them actually if they are on the call. But so that is quite important. And if we go to the second slide more is about what a partnership between Greenhouse Sports and the corporates mean. And for me, what is very important, it has to be a win-win for everyone involved. So it has to work for the kids, for the young people, for the stakeholders, for the schools, for the corporates, for Greenhouse Sports. So that is very important. But we offer volunteering opportunities, and that gives the corporate an opportunity to engage with our young people. And as you were saying, Heather, they get to speak to people who have a fantastic corporate career. So I love those events very much. You see this fabulous center here, Greenhouse Center, which is absolutely fabulous. I mean, to me, it's still, it could be exploited more. Can we share the slide again, please? Still, that can be used for client entertainment, team building. Obviously, corporates participate also in challenge events for fundraising activities. You get exposure to PR, and we are in the press. And in fact, I must say, Greenhouse Sports has been in the press quite a bit over the past few weeks. We were in the Evening Standard. Lord Sepko did a very good article in the Mail on Sunday. So that's all. We organize informative events, and then we do offer also for the corporates network opportunities with other corporates, because they do like network opportunities. We are quite well supported already in the financial sector. So this is it a little bit about those opportunities with the corporates. So I think now we can open for Q&A, so where you can post your questions. So I'm going to take my tablet and see whether I'm having questions here. So, I know that actually, maybe, do we have a little bit of time of sharing the polling results with the audience? So, on the first question on where does diversity and inclusion sit within your organization, 54% said that it's led by a diversity and inclusion committee or champion. What steps are you going to take to help to address the issues discussed? Look to widen and diversify my network. That's a nice one. So, Right, let's go to the questions now. How can employees lobby their company to ensure it is more diverse and inclusive? Where should diversity and inclusion sit within a business to ensure it is given the focus it requires? That's an interesting one. If I can start by saying that often you will see it is part of an HR department, and although I think HR does, often does a good job about doing this, I don't think it's only their responsibility. I feel it should be part, really, it can be part of any department in a corporate, but I think it's important that it gets discussed at the top, board level, and you get the right role modeling. Is there anything else that you would like to add to it?
It should be at the heart of all organizations. Diversity, inclusion, equality, the gender pay gap, that should be obliterated. There should be no pay gap between male and female doing the same job and being paid differently. The ethnicity pay gap, that should be gotten rid of. It's not hard to do it, just do it. I mean, I often wonder why you need a consultancy. Now, I'm shooting myself in the foot because I provide consultancy to corporations, right? Yeah. But I wonder why you need consultancy to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To do the right thing. So basically, it should be at the heart of the organization. If you don't have diversity in the boardroom, the organization is rotten. It's toxic. It's got to be at the highest levels and right throughout the organization. You've got to have a robust program of recruitment and retention and progression right the way through the organization. And if you're not seeing it, then you're not fit for purpose. Because we live in a society now where there's no further excuses. We should not have people like Alexandra Wilson and other barristers walking in court and being mistaken as a defendant.
Yeah.
Those things are odious and toxic, and it sends a clarion message to people, black people, Asian people, people from all over the world who live here, this society that we share, that they're not welcome. And corporations have to be on the forefront dealing with this, championing, fighting it, and it must not be a one-day thing. Diversity Day, Black History Month. Yeah, of course, we can have those days, we can celebrate those days, but it must run right through the organization
365.
and right round the world, right round the year.
I think as well that people have to look in different places for their employees. I'm not saying that you should, it shouldn't be a meritocracy, but you know, you don't always hire from the same recruitment agencies. You don't always headhunt the same types of people in the same types of way, in the same kind of places. You have to be more creative with what you're doing. And I do understand that people need like a diversity team. But your diversity team should be diverse. Because sometimes this is why they don't succeed. Because the diversity team isn't diverse. So if you're trying to write a situation and you haven't got the proper employees or the right task force, you're not going to succeed, because some people are prone to hiring people that look like them, or they have some kind of empathy with. So I would say go out and to different kinds of organizations and have empathy with those kinds of organizations. And when you recruit, you also look at those organizations to recruit in. So you go into black communities, you go into female spaces, and you go into gay or trans spaces. You go and find different people who are top of their game, of course, but can tell you what you need in your company and can be those people that you need.
It's a bit, I mean, you answer a little bit the question. The next question is, how do you think businesses can improve diversity in recruitment? I mean, I know that is a big issue. And what makes a business seems attractive to attract a diverse pool of applicants? What will help generate a sense of inclusion in corporates to ensure retention to the most senior level of a diverse workforce? I mean, that's a big question, but, you know, diversity in recruitment, you know.
And you know, this is where I come in here, because I mean, if you're in an organization, a firm, an entity, a body, and you don't know how to do this, then you're going to need a consultant. This is work I've done. This is work I'm currently engaged in. I'm doing it. But number one, it's a shame that you can't do it.
But is it also
because it means
sometimes-
that you're not connecting with the whole of society. So you need outside influence to help you to make those connections. But once you make those connections, you've got to concretize them within the fabric of the work. You see, like how racism is concretized in the fabric. You can go into an organization right now and not find one racist. Yet the organization is racist. But not one, every individual is nice. So the racism have seeped into the structure. The reason why it's done that is because each generation, wave of generation, builds on the racism that they inherited in the past. They haven't changed the way. What you have to is radically transform and then spend the rest of your time building in, maintaining that change. So you shouldn't need a consultant every 10 years. You know how many places I've gone to consult, and they said, we need a consultation for diversity and so on. I said, let me see what you've done before. And the report is there, gathering dust. And the report is written better than I could ever write. It's written well. Do that. Do the last.
That's the thing.
But
That's
Implement the
is it
last
then-
strategy that
is it
somebody
then-
recommended.
But is it then a question of courage? Like, okay, when you have the candidates, just give the job to them.
Well, I think firms feel like they can get off the hook by talking about diversity, inclusion,
Rather than
and
doing
so
it.
on.
Without doing
And you need to do it. It's not hard to do. If you really wanted to make money, you think outside the box, you do everything, you do charts, you do
Absolutely.
graphs, because you want to make money. If you're serious about diversity, it is not hard to do. We're not hard to reach people. We're not hard to reach. We're at your door, we're knocking, we're there. You are hard to reach.
Yeah.
Become open, become transparent, become welcoming. And that is what organizations need to
The
do.
thing is as well, like Dave says, you have to be welcoming, because you're not going to get a diverse population populating your companies if they don't feel welcomed. You know, if I think to myself, I'm not going to get that job, the majority of people will not apply. And so it comes to the fact where sometimes, you know, your name alone can put you on the no list. And so sometimes maybe, you know, you've got to do some of this recruiting blind. You've got to, you know, everybody's called Joe Smith until you get to the actual hiring. And then you know, you've got to be more creative, because what's happening now is not working. It's not working.
I mean,
Well, the music sector did that. They became creative. For example, in the classical world, they did blind testing. They had no women in these orchestras.
Yeah.
They had no black people in these politically black. And then they blind tested the curtains, and all of a sudden, women were in the orchestras because they were listening. I encourage organizations to listen with your heart, not look with your racist eyes. Look, racism is not a death sentence. Nobody's going to kill you because you can't help being racist in a racist society. You're going to end up with a racist ethos. But you need to close your eyes to the dominant racial pressures that are on all of us. It's on all of us. It affects us all. And open your ears and open your heart to pure goodness, to talent, to the things that will really help. And so I think that's part of what we need to do.
Okay. Well, it's a very powerful answer. I mean, we do have a lot of questions, and there is
Oh, yeah,
no
read
way
them all.
we will
We
be able to
deal
go
with
through
them.
all the questions. So I will make sure that we'll give you a response. But I'll take one more. Could you give us some example of some really effective partnerships you have with some of your corporate funders and the impact those relationships have had? Yes, I mean, the one that I can think about is Prudential. We had a fantastic relationship with Prudential, who funded us for 7 years, and we ran a basketball club, and we supported with that funding more than 20,000 young people.
Nice.
And the impact on those 20,000 people has been phenomenal. We have impact reports about that, so I'm more than happy to share that information with whoever has asked that question. But so I think we are coming to the end almost. Please do not log off, because we have a bit of a surprise for you. First of all, I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who joined this call. I know you have taken some valuable time of your day to do that. I mean, I can't tell you more. I mean, you saw those stats earlier on, 800,000 children, young people in London, one of the richest countries in the world. It's not acceptable. These children are living in crisis now, and with COVID-19, it can only get worse. They need us yesterday, not today, so we are already too late, if you ask me. I would love to be able to continue that conversation with you on how you can support, Greenhouse Sports, so collectively, we can change the lives of these young people. So please feel free to contact me personally, or people in my team, such as Sarah Webster or James Stephen, and we'll be, we would love to explore ways to work together, and we can answer your questions as well. Do not log off. Still, do not log off, because Dave, is a poet, and I'm sure you've noticed that in the way he answers his questions, the poetry of his words is extremely articulate. I wish I could speak like him. So he's going to be reciting a little poem, and then after that, still don't log off. We need, a few seconds from you. We will do a very short survey, and we want you to answer those questions, because that will be able to help us shape the way we organize, future virtual events. Well, hopefully not too many, because I would prefer to do some face-to-face events, but that would be great. So for now on, thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Dave.
Thank you very much. My poem is called Our Resolution. Every day that we are sent is a brand new start, to take a little moment to examine our heart. Every brand new day is a new opportunity to establish in our lives social justice and equity. So don't you wait another day to put into action the good things you put off for a future program. You're taking care of yourself, but what about your neighbor? the hungry and the needy and the outsider. They don't get a look in, the widow and the orphan. Why don't you open up your heart and stretch out your hand? All the youths in the city are bursting with potential. Let us not waste it by neglecting the true essential. It is not just about profit and relentless acquisition. We must be driven by fairness and wise distribution. We know that what we need is a revolution of the heart and the mind and the inner human. Let's be bold and obliterate the old program. The status quo is oppressive for almost everyone. The system needs to change. Let us do it without fear. Engage the best in us. And let us really start care. Let us pull down the physical and metaphysical monuments of hate and all the isms and the schisms that a just society should never tolerate. And then we build a new society, an egalitarian kingdom, free from all the injustices that degrade our equitable communion. Let us seal our beautiful commitment in a resolution. We are not waiting for the new year to put this into action. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.